Hi everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher and I'm just continuing with my project, and I thought I would talk about various stitches that I use after I've applied a layer of something else and how I think about those stitches and what I consider before I choose one to apply. So let's get started, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. It helps me with those YouTube algorithms. And talk to me. I love hearing from you in the comments section. So if you have any questions, or if there's something you're working on, or just want to chat, I always love hearing from you. Grab something to stitch with and let's get some stitching done. All right, so I have these locks, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, well, how can I, first of all, I need to adhere them, right? Because even with my needle punch, they're not going to stay adhered. I mean, I just kind of punch them to keep them in place. It's a little like pinning them, but it's not a permanent solution. So obviously I need to do something. And I want to keep the general idea of this lock going. So I don't want to cover it with a lot of stitches that are going to take away from this sort of the beauty of it. So what I've decided to do is, with the painter's thread, is I'm just going to, in various places, I'm going to couch it. And I'm going to couch it. I mean, I could couch it, any number of different ways. I could do bullion knots. I could do little pistol stitches. I could do all kinds of things, but because I want this lock to be the center, sort of what you see rather than the stitching, I'm just going to go ahead and do a straight couch. And I think I'll do, maybe 2 here. And then I'm going to go ahead and couch over here. And that's what I think about. I think about, what am I stitching down? What do I want it to be the focus, or do I want it to be part of the focus? Do I want the stitch, the stitches to somehow enhance and also be part of the focus, or do I really want the stitches to completely disappear? In this case, it's not, the stitches are not going to completely disappear. You certainly can see them, and that's okay. I don't mind that, but I also don't want something big and bulky, because I want to keep this beautiful lock of mohair to kind of be the thing that I'm seeing. And of course, you're going to see the stitches too, but that's okay. And then I can use the stitches to kind of manipulate the lock by, where I'm positioning it, where I'm positioning the couching. And how tight am I making the couching? Am I pulling it in? Am I not pulling it in? Those are all things that I'm thinking about as I do this, as I kind of move along. Do I want to push that down? In which case, I would need to come up, say here, right? And then I don't want, so here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to have the stitch showing as much as I want to adhere this little loop. So I'm going to weave into that, and then I'm going to pull it down. And I also want to be aware of, when I pull it down, am I letting it, am I positioning the stitching in a way that allows it to follow its own natural path? And I do. So there's that. So yeah, you can see the stitch right there, but it's good enough. And then for this area, where the stitching is going to show more because it's quite a bit grayer, I'm just going to keep sort of going around and considering the piece and considering the movement of the lock, and also, you know, just the logistics of it, which is I want to adhere it, right? So that's going to really show. Now I could change thread, which, you know, maybe I'll do that. Okay, so I went ahead and I've got this Renoir. This is also the painter's thread, soft cotton, which they come in just lovely colors. In any case, that one looks pretty close to this. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take this out, and I'm going to tie a knot in the back. Now, someone asked me about the back, how you like end stuff. I mean, you can see I've got like a whole rat's nest there. That happened yesterday when I was kind of worried about stuff and not paying attention. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about the back, but if you are concerned, or you do for whatever reason want to make sure that your back is nice and neat and not do a knot, what you can do is you take your thread, and I'll do it with this one instead of tying a knot. You can take your thread up. This is how a lot of people who do a lot of embroidery do it. Also, if you've got something where the back is going to be shown, then it's important also, because you don't want knots in the back. So you need to come up somewhere where either your stitching is going to be to cover it, or you've got, like this, a lock of hair. What you do is you just take a stitch and that's it. You just do a couple of times, and now I'm going to take it back down. My lock is going to go right there, and I'm going to go ahead and come up here and begin. I don't know what that is. And I'm going to couch it there. And look, that really actually matches beautifully. And I'm going to come in here. How incredible that thread matches. It's kind of amazing. And then I'm going to come in here because I want this little swooshy bit to stay the way it is. I don't want to couch over it. But then I'm going to pull in here, and I'm going to come right over here, and I'm going to pull there as well. So that's that. And I'm going to come there. I'm going to leave the little end there, just kind of hanging out. Now again, if you wanted to end your thread without a knot, what you can do, and you can see that I do not go by this rule, you can also weave through these existing stitches. Let's say you had nothing to hide it under. You could just come through these existing stitches and weave through them before ending. Now this is going to create some bulk, so it's not so different. This is going to create some bulk. It's not so different from having a knot. If you didn't want to do a knot, you would come up underneath this lock here and do the same thing that you did before. and then end your thread. Okay, so there's that. I like that. This is kind of sticking up, but remember I tacked it down, so it's fine. It's not going anywhere. And I'm going to use my blue thread to do the same here, although I think I might tack down the top part with this one. The Renoir. Same idea, you know, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm not gonna do anything different. I'm going to just couch it, and then I'm gonna, after I've done all these locks, I will then move on to the next part and see, you know, what do I want to do with that next part. I've added quite a lot of silk sari and silk waist, which I'm going to stitch over, and so what I do with the stitching again is going to be about, so I'm going to end this and I'm going to add my blue now. Oh, when I do a knot, I just do this. Now, other people, you know, do all kinds of other things. I did a video on how to end and begin thread, and you can take a look. I'll put that in the upper right corner there of this video, so you can check that out. But whatever works for you, I think is, you know, it's good to have a couple options available to you, and then just do whatever you know, whatever you feel like you prefer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and couch this part down. And I'm also pulling it in a little. So I'm getting more, I'm emphasizing kind of the lock and the tuft, how it's a kind of a tuft. So now I'm going to go over here because I want to leave that swoop alone. And then I'm going to go here. And I think I'll go here. There we go. Okay, I like that. All right. So now, as I'm considering, so obviously I'm going to do the same over here. I won't, you know, film all that. And then I'm going to think about what do I want to do here and up here, if anything, or do I want to leave it? I have some other big pieces of roving. So this is bark, and I adhered it with French knots, but I need to actually adhere it a bit more. This knot, these two knots didn't catch it, and so I have some linen thread, so I think I'll go ahead and get in here with that and see if I can adhere it a bit better. I do think I'll just keep going with the French knot idea. And the reason I chose French knots was because I didn't want something covering this, so I wanted a stitch that would adhere it and give it a little texture, but that wasn't going to overwhelm the bark. I wanted to be able to still see the bark. Now, another thing that I could do is I could do a running stitch along the lines, sort of along the grain, if you will, of the bark. So, for instance, I could take my needle here and just do like a running stitch along here, and then I could come up again over here, and I could run along this part. I do need to use my pliers often. And I'm just kind of following the grain. Also not worrying about it too much, but this is a pretty easy way to adhere this bark. If you get a thread color that's very close, you won't even see the stitching necessarily. I did want this to kind of, these bits here to sort of flow out. So I may come back in here and again, a running stitch along the length of this. And then along the length of this one as well. Come back down over here maybe and start my line of stitching. And I want this to, I'm going to end up just couching it here with really little stitches that from far away it won't even show. But I don't want this to just come off, you know? I want it to stay in position. So I'll go ahead and couch this. Okay. And I think that that's pretty good at this point. I could couch it, do a running stitch down here. I think I will, just to be safe. So again, I'm going to do a running stitch along this grain. And I think I'm going to come over here and do the same down this one. There we go. And that's pretty well adhered now. So I'll go ahead and end this thread. And then, let's see. All right. I did that running stitch along here as well. So now I have, this big bit here. And what I'm thinking of doing is I'm thinking that I might do some seed stitches in here. But then I'm thinking there's this kind of long line here. And maybe what I'll do is something like a Palestrina knot, or I don't know. I'm gonna think about it. And I also have to find the right thread color for this. I want it, if I can't find this color, it's not gonna work. So, but I'm pretty sure I have it. Let me take a look. This one is Frida. It's pretty good. It's got some gray variation in it, but I think that's okay. I think it would work. Now, when I do a Palestrina knot, I typically like to do a Palestrina knot with either a 4, at least a 5-weight thread. I also don't want this pink to show, so I'm going to start my quilter's knot above that. And I like to do it with a 5 or a 3-weight thread. I like the Palestrina knot to be, meaty. I like a meaty Palestrina knot. I'm going to start down here, I think. Okay, so I'm going to come right up. And I'm just going to straddle that kind of maroon rust-colored line. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to go all the way up and then sort of peter out up there with my Palestrina knot. And then I'm going to come in and do some other stuff over here. Not sure what I'm going to do there, but this sort of gives you an idea of what I'm thinking as I stitch, and the kinds of questions I ask myself as when I add a layer of something to a fabric, and the different things that I consider as I begin to stitch. So like in this example, well, I see this line, I like that, let me accentuate it, let me find a thread color that works, that's the same. And then, a Palestrina knot, that's going to give it lots of dimension. And then because it's a Palestrina knot, because of the color, that's going to tell me what size thread, what weight thread I'm going to use. So I'm going to use, because it's a Palestrina knot, I'm going to use a 5 or a 3. Because of the color, I know it's a painter's, that's going to be a 3. So, boom, done. Those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about. And yesterday I had to spend quite a bit of time waiting in an office, so I was doing this, and what I brought with me was 3 sizes of this color, a 3 and 5 weight and an 8 weight, and so I just used all 3 sizes and did a whole bunch of French knots. So here's number 3 weight French knots, here's a number 5 weight French knots, and here's a number 8 weight French knots. But when you do that, it really does add interest, because if they were all the exact same, I think it's more interesting when they're different weights. That's just me. So I hope that you found this helpful and of interest, and thanks so much for watching. Until next time, let's keep stitching together.